Would you sacrifice your principles in order to survive? You'll find out right after this. Hey everybody, I'm Taylor from Beard vs. Geek, where I show you it is okay to be a man and a geek at the same time. Today we are back on the bridge of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and we are talking about that semi-nefarious organization named Section 31. Section 31 is kinda like the United Federation of Planets, CIA, or MI5 and 6, where basically they do whatever is necessary to keep the Federation free. Now, Section 31 actually started with the Starfleet Charter, Article 14, Section 31, which said, and I'm paraphrasing here, if there are extraordinary threats to the Federation, then extraordinary measures may be taken in order to protect its sovereignty. Now, Section 31 has been debated heavily in the Star Trek forums online, with the majority of Star Trek fans saying that Section 31 is not justifiable, because it goes against the principles of the United Federation of Planets, and it lays aside all sorts of its principles and morals, and does whatever it takes, believing that the ends justify the means. I, on the other hand, am going to show you that Section 31 is not only justifiable, but is an absolute necessity. Now first, let's take a look back at history and seeing whether or not good guys ever laid aside their morals and principles in order to survive. And for that, let's go to World War II. FDR, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was a very popular president and served 3 terms, which was very unprecedented, as President of the United States of America. And during World War II, after Pearl Harbor got bombed and scared the entire pants off of the Americans, FDR signed an executive order stating that people of Japanese descent and Japanese immigrants need to be detained and interred at camps, fearing that these people would write letters back to Japan or would tell the Japanese intelligence agencies exactly where to bomb. Because not only did they put Japanese immigrants in these camps, but they put a lot of American citizens in these camps as well. And I don't know how familiar you are with Americans and our rights, but we have written in our oldest laws that a person cannot be detained without just cause, and that a person cannot be arrested or searched without cause. That's in the United States Constitution, thus laying aside deep American principles of freedom aside for the sake of security. Now let's move on to Winston Churchill, the man who kept Britain fighting throughout the Trouble and strolled across piles of debris during the day right after those buildings had just gotten bombed the night before, and whistling and singing a tune, and he was probably drunk at that time, but you know, he's a nice guy overall. Now, that brings us to the Ministry of Information, or MOI, was established to keep morale going on through the United Kingdom, as well as to make sure that sensitive or classified documents or military movements did not fall into German hands. For example, newspapers were required to submit images and articles to the MOI in order to be reviewed by their censors and make sure that they are saying the right things, and to make sure that military movements and structures were not depicted in any photographs or mentioned in any articles. Even though that kind of sounds reasonable, the MOI took it one step further. They went down to trying to almost brainwash the entire population and doing heavily censoring in the British press and arresting people who were determined as being bad for morale. Now, the MOI was actually the basis for the Ministry of Truth, which was written about in the book 1984, which is a very amazing book, and I highly recommend you read it because it's a doozy, and it really opens your eyes to the world that we live in. However, stifling the freedom of press is not exactly a British principle. In fact, they've always prided themselves on saying the truth in the press and encouraging truth to go out to its people. So it has been proven in humanity that we will set our principles aside in order to survive. But why? Well, that comes down to our instincts as a species. We want to live, we want to survive, and that is a biologically programmed thing in our species. That is how we've been able to outcompete all sorts of other primate species that have evolved on this planet. One we directly outcompeted, which is Neanderthal. So naturally, in order to survive, human beings will lay aside their principles and do whatever it takes in order to not only survive, but to thrive. And that leads us to other government agencies, such as MI5, MI6 in the UK, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the all sorts of ICE, and every other acronym that we have over in America for different government agencies that have to do with national security, as well as a lot of other major powers, including the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the French, the Spanish, the German, all having intelligence agencies of their own, all making sure that their individual countries are kept safe from outside and inside harm. Therefore, Section 31 has been developed for the United Federation of Planets in order to make sure that the sovereignty of the United Federation of Planets survives. And these are people who are patriots to the United Federation of Planets. Deputy Director Sloan, when he was dying, the secretive side as well as his non-secretive side, who had like a family and friends and everything else, said that he was doing his duty to protect the Federation, and he truly believed that. People who work for the FBI, CIA, MI5, MI6, etc., are true patriots. And they believe that what they are doing are saving lives, not so much taking lives. And even though we do know that in American history, these sorts of agencies, including the CIA, have performed or tried to perform rather dastardly deeds, including trying to assassinate the head of Cuba for a couple of decades. Section 31 does the same thing. And in fact, almost every major power in the Alpha and Beta quadrant has a sort of secret government agency that protects its own interests. For example, the Cardassians have the Obsidian Order, and the Romulans have the Tal Shiar. Both organizations that work in secret and who work in darkness to protect what they view as light. And without Section 31, the Federation probably would have died in its infancy. Although we do not know any specifics, we do know that they are willing to do whatever it takes in order to survive, which is something that the United Federation of Planets and Starfleet refuses to do. They will hold down to its principles and its morals and lose a war at all costs, whereas Section 31 will do whatever it takes to win the war at all costs. And it is those type of fighters that make sure that those governments stay intact. Let me know what you think about Section 31 in the comments down below, whether or not you support it or if you're against it and why. I actually do read your comments and respond as often as I can. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe. Great videos are coming out every week where I show you it is okay to be a man and a geek at the same time. You can also click on one of these two videos right here for some more manliness and some more geekiness. Because after all, if the women don't find you manly, they should at least find you geeky. And until next time, don't go shaving on me.